I love my Washington Nationals, but have you taken a look at the AA Harrisburg Senators team? Oh my God.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dog. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb or enter promo code LockedOnMLB for a free white tech hat with any order. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We can promise you that. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And I'm your host, Ryan Clary. To the everydayers out there, you know where to find me on Twitter at RyanClary11, and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals. And a little bit later on in today's show, the Nationals are heading up to the Bronx, and they are facing off against the New York Yankees. That's going to be a fun matchup. The Yankees, they have stunk on ice. We'll tell you about that a little bit later on. But also, Carter Kieboom is now sticking in the major leagues. And if you remember, former first-round pick, former top 20 prospect, Carter Kieboom one time had a lot of promise. How much playing time should we see with Carter Kieboom moving forward? I got some thoughts on that. And as well, Rizzo and Davey both got their extensions. If you missed yesterday's episode, that dropped late last night. You can check that out and get my initial reaction to both those things. But what does that mean for new ownership? Because there was actually a little interesting nugget there from Jesse Doherty in his story yesterday. We'll discuss that a little bit later on as well. But as we said, let's talk about this AA Harrisburg Senators team, because we talk about this all season long. With this AA team, as you see Brady House, James Wood, Robert Hassell, Trey Lipscomb, they've all been there for the last month and a half or so. Those were the big gun prospects pre-Dylan Cruz. But now, since then, Dylan Cruz over the last 48 hours has been called up, skipped high A, and he is going to AA Harrisburg. And as we sit here today, this lineup is by far and away the most interesting part of this Nationals organization. And they make their debut tonight. All of those core guys together, the top three prospects in this team's organization, whatever you want to call it, Brady House, Dylan Cruz, and James Wood will all be there tonight making their debut. But even beyond those three, those are the three guys that we all want to talk about every single day. I could talk 30 minutes on those three any day of the week. Those are your big three. These are your guys who are your blue chippers, the kind of can't miss prospects. Now, while you look around, we all know what James Wood has been doing at the AA level so far this season. He started off in high A Wilmington, and he was good. But ever since he got pulled up to AA, the ball has just been flying. It's been flying out of the yard for James Wood as we sit here today. And right now, his home run total has been superb at AA. Because we sit here today, he's got 15 home runs in 64 games now in AA. That is legit. For a 20-year-old turning 21 this September, could be getting the call up to AAA here soon. And while his numbers aren't as well as we have seen them throughout his career, throughout last year in Fredericksburg, and as well as low A down in the Padres system, and in rookie ball as well, his strikeouts are up. Yes, I understand all those points. But what makes James Wood special is his power. And his power has certainly been on display there. Now, while it's easy to get caught up in looking at his numbers and say, well, he's striking out a lot more. He's not taking his walks. He's not getting on base as much as he was either. Yes, that's a fair point. But if you look at the numbers as a whole and really just kind of put them to the side for a second, his power is still on display. And that part is not concerning, because that's what sticks out with James Wood. If he didn't have the power, he would still be a good baseball player. But that's not what makes him James Wood. That's not what makes him a top 10 prospect in baseball. What separates him from the pack is the power that he has had. And so far, those 15 home runs and 44 RBIs in 64 ball games, that's incredible. That is really good production from, again, someone who's only 20 years old. He can't even walk into your local Safeway and buy a beer. That's how young this guy is. And at 15, standing at, or 15 years old, at 15 home runs, standing at 6'7", there's going to be some swing and miss issues as we have seen in the AA level. Now, maybe Mike Rizzo and Dijon Watson, they want to see this kind of fix on their own. Maybe they want to see him kind of come back to the pack a little bit and land back on earth. But I don't really see if that's the case at this moment. Because now when you have all these guys in your picture, when you have Brady House, Dylan Cruz, Robert Hassell, Trey Lipscomb, and also in the back end of your rotation, you have two solid left-handed pitchers being DJ Herz, what you just got for Jeimer Candelario, who threw a gem the other day, and as well as left-handed pitcher Mitchell Parker, who's been good and who has been really good as of recent. This Nationals team down in Harrisburg is very exciting, to say the least, because we talk about all like these flashy prospects. You talk about them and you talk about the guys who have been good and have been relatively productive at the minor league level. That's where Harrisburg sits right here, right now. Because you could talk about High A Wilmington, Yohandy Morales. I love Yo-Yo. I think he's going to be a really good big league hitter down the road, potentially. He's got some things to fix. He's got to work on some strikeout issues, and I also want to see the ball leave the yard, just like he did at the University of Miami. But you also have outfielders like Jacob Young, someone who could steal 50-plus bags, who did that last year in Fredericksburg, by the way, a 7th-round pick in 2021. Jacob Young has actually had a very good season for this Nationals team, and in fact, he's recently cracked the top 30 on this prospect list, and so far this season, he's got a 794 OPS, he's got 39 stolen bags, he's got 42 walks, 68 strikeouts, and a couple home runs as well, and 56 RBIs. This is a really interesting Harrisburg Senators team because when you talk about production, when you talk about guys that you want to see, and even as far as sleepers go, this Harrisburg Senators team has it all. And you're going to be seeing, and you can watch these games live, by the way, Valley Sports Live for free. It's really cool. You're going to be utilizing it, watching this team moving forward. So now you get to see the big three in the same lineup. This is what we want to see, not only at the AA level, but hopefully this time next year. I would expect that James Wood and Dylan Cruz will already be establishing themselves at the major league level, and unless something crazy happens. That's truly what I do believe, because at the end of the day, also, Keith Law said, quote, I infer from the move that they're at least considering having him see the majors this year when talking about Dylan Cruz. Dylan Cruz is going to be in the majors by this time next year, barring any injury or anything crazy or anything unforeseen. Same with James Wood. And the way that Brady House has been playing in AA, as well as High A, and as well as Fredericksburg this season, I certainly expect him to be knocking on the door at the very least up in AAA this time next year. And in fact, it could even be a little bit sooner than that. It could be in July or June, just depending on what he hits, what he does. We'll just have to see. But furthermore than that, there's also a sleeper prospect that we've talked about a lot in this show. Trey Lipscomb, third baseman, 3rd-round pick from the University of Tennessee, someone who has played all 4 positions in the infield this season, kind of setting him up as that utility guy. You even look at him and what he has done so far as production goes. Right now on MLB Pipeline sits at the number 14 prospect in this organization, but he has certainly turned some heads from what he has done in AA. Batting .335 in AA in 58 games, has a .359 OBP, a .525 slug. That is an .884 OPS on this season. And also, his power has been very much so on display, hitting 9 home runs. That's 13 home runs on this season so far, 39 RBIs, and again, only 38 ball games. The AA Harrisburg Senators, this is the team that I want to watch. The Nationals, you guys are playing very exciting baseball. But let's not forget this. This team is still about the future. And when you're watching these guys really mold together and come together as a core, I think that's going to be huge for the production of your young minor league prospects. And even then, as we kind of mentioned, DJ Herz, Mitchell Parker as well. This is a very intriguing team. And a lot of these guys could hopefully be the core of the Nationals moving forward, especially if you were to have Trey Lipscomb do what he has been doing so far at AA. If you were to continue to progress with someone like him and have him be a second baseman or a first baseman or just a utility infielder, that is a huge plus for this team moving forward. And in fact, the rate that he's been playing, the rate that he's been hitting this season, you could probably move him up to AAA relatively soon and have Brady House just get all the reps that at AA at third base. While that's kind of been the case for most of the season, they've been flip-flopping a lot. They've DH'd Trey Lipscomb. They've DH'd Brady House. They DH'd James Wood. They DH'd all of those prospects. But there's also another intriguing one in that group, which is Robert Hassell. Robert Hassell, who has, as we all know, really floundered this season and just hasn't been himself. He's been striking out a lot. He's not really hitting for power. He's not getting extra base hits. But most importantly, he's striking out a lot for someone who has never been a strikeout hitter. So this is the team to watch moving forward. You have your two top 10 prospects in all of baseball with Dylan Cruz and James Wood now. You also have your interesting middle-of-the-road prospects like Trey Lipscomb, Jacob Young, Mitchell Parker, and DJ Herz. And you also have a top prospect like Robert Hassell, who has struggled immensely at the AA level and really as well as any level that he's been at in this season. This is the team to watch. This is going to be a fun watch moving forward. Because not only is it just the future core of the Nationals, but these guys could be developing right in front of your eyes. It's not that far away. They're only 2 call-ups away from being in the big leagues. That's how close these guys are just being in AA. So it's going to be an interesting watch, to say the least. But, man, I love my Nationals. But, God, I'm going to be watching a lot of the Harrisburg Senators moving forward. Thank you guys for making Locked On Nats your first listen. The Nationals play the Yankees tonight at 7:05. You can catch every pitch of the Nationals' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Nationals there. Before we get into talking about multiple things with Carter Kieboom, and as well as what does the Rizzo and Davey extensions mean for ownership moving forward. I got some thoughts on that, but before we get into that, let me tell you guys about our friends at Bird Dogs. And guys, Bird Dogs is simple as this. I have big tree trunk legs, and this is why I can trust Bird Dogs, because Bird Dogs make you look good. And Bird Dog stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They will fit way better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cottons. And Bird Dogs fixed the issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you can get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dogs uses anti-stink sweat, winking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Show yourself wearing Bird Dogs and tell me this. You cannot tell me that they, 1, look good, and 2, you feel good in them. That is the ultimate key to confidence. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter promo code LockedOnMLB for a free white tech hat with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or promo code LockedOnMLB for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you that. Now let's get back into it, as Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez both have reached an extension with the Washington Nationals and the Lerner ownership group. As we know, over the last year and a half, there's always been questions popping up. Will the Lerner family sell or won't they sell? What is going to happen? And at this moment in time, no one really knows what will happen. But Jesse Doherty actually had a post on this the other day and kind of dropped this in his story that maybe this could mean the Nationals might be looking to sell at this moment in time. Now, while I don't really see that, for me, I just don't really believe that this move, extending Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez, what it really means for this ownership group. Now, this is the exact quote from Jesse Doherty in his post story. According to a person familiar with the decision-making process, extending Martinez and potentially Rizzo too is more about projecting stability to potential buyers than because of the recent success. That is interesting. That is an interesting note from someone who is very plugged in on the Nationals and who does a great job in this organization and covering them every single day. But in my opinion, I don't really think that drawing these two conclusions from extending Rizzo and extending Davey will really reach out to new ownership. And in fact, my first reaction to this news was that this kind of seems that the Lerners are once again bought in, that they are once again part of the organization moving forward, and they want to be a part of this organization moving forward because we all know that there's always been kind of a little back and forth between the Lerner family. They're either all in or all out, it seems like. That's always kind of been the knock on them. But I think this extension right here, giving them multi-year deals for someone who's been in the organization like Mike Rizzo since 2006 and Davey Martinez since 2018, winning a World Series, both of them. It just doesn't really feel like they're out. And I could be wrong because no one really knows what's going on with this. Are they bought back in? Do they want to spend again? Do they want to be a part of this organization moving forward? Because those are all real questions at this moment. But extending them doesn't really seem, I just don't really see it. I don't see that they're going to be going forward and extending guys who could be attractive to potential new ownership. Now, while Davey Martinez and Mike Rizzo, both solid at their jobs, both World Series winners, is that attractive to potential buyers to have those guys locked up? Because I think if they were loyal to the organization, they'd probably re-sign anyways. But even then, if this whole ownership change is going to be happening, is it going to be happening this offseason? Because both those guys were free agents this offseason. So to have them tied up even longer, this is something you probably could have done in October or November and do the same thing, run it all back. So I don't really see the part where this could open up ownership. Now, Jesse Doherty is certainly very plugged in, has his sources. I'm sure he's not lying. I can tell you that. But I just don't really see it. I don't really see them selling at this moment in time. And I flip-flop back and forth on this. But it's just something to watch out going forward because I thought that was an interesting note that kind of got slept on from yesterday's reading. But also, let's talk about Carter Kieboom real quick because we got a couple minutes here to spare before getting into the Yankees-Nats series. But Carter Kieboom, as we know, former top prospect, former first-round pick, really, really integral part in this Nationals rebuild at one point. Back in 2019, when he got called up, he kind of floundered a little bit, hit a home run in his first game. He looked good, and we were like, oh, okay, this guy's got something. And then ever since then, it's just been downhill. 2020 was not good. 2021 was not good either. And then in 2022, recovering from Tommy John surgery the entire season, not getting any playing time, coming back this season, and he's looked impressive at the plate, to say the least. I haven't really been able to look into his defensive metrics, but even then, he's DH'd a lot, and he's really just getting his feet wet once again after being out of baseball for over a year. So with Carter Kieboom, now while a lot of people may not want to see him all that often, you may say, well, I want to see Jake Alou, who has been promising, who has showed us something, who has had a couple clutch hits here and there. Yeah, I want to see Jake Alou too. I also want to see a little bit less of Ildemaro Vargas. I like Ildemaro, but he's a utility guy. We know what he is. You don't have to play him to find out what he is because we already know. He's a utility guy, and that's about it. But you cannot say that you're 100% sure about Carter Kieboom. That's why I do want to see Kieboom get some good playing time. And in fact, I would love to see him in tonight's starting lineup. I'd love to see him starting over at third base. I think it would mean a lot to this team. And if you were to get any sort of production from him, it opens up a plethora of opportunities moving forward. You could either trade him in the offseason and hope to God someone bites and you get something back in return. Or you can just have him get an opportunity at third base to start opening day next year. There's going to have to be a bridge between Brady House and whatever else is going to come next. Is it going to be Trey Lipscomb? Is he going to be the aggressive guy that you throw up in the major leagues and kind of have him be that bridge guy? Maybe, but I don't really see it. Are you going to spend on a one-year free agent similar to what you did with Candelario and hope that you can send him off the trade deadline next year for another package of prospects? Potentially. But I also think you should probably get a good look at what Carter Kieboom has done. And while I'm still not encouraged from his numbers, he doesn't have any crazy big-time numbers at AAA. And even then, every time he's been sent down in AAA, he's always done pretty good. He's kind of like your typical 4A player, you could say. But Kieboom was once a promising prospect. And while he still has yet to play a full 162-game season, that's why I want to see a little bit more from him. I need to be 100% sure, and this goes for any former top prospect. You need to be 100% sure that this guy isn't going to turn it around. As we've seen with Victor Robles, if Victor Robles wasn't once a top 10 prospect in baseball for multiple years over, he wouldn't have been getting the opportunities that he has gotten over the years. Now, some people could say, well, his defense is just that good, and I agree. It's very good. Michael A. Taylor was also a great defender. He was a great defender, but he was not a starting outfielder on a good team. He was a fourth outfielder. Victor Robles has gotten plenty of starting opportunities over 2020, 2021, and as well as last season and into this season as well. Obviously getting hurt, which is unfortunate. But that's the guy that you've given all these opportunities to who just really hasn't shown much improvement. And in fact, he hasn't improved whatsoever. This year, he looked good in his limited starts, but we all know that was going to land back on earth eventually. So I think Carter Kieboom, while he shouldn't be given the time that Victor Robles has given to really just be better and to really grow into a major leaguer, he should still get a solid opportunity and probably should start half of the next month and a half games. That's what I would expect. At least, hopefully, 15, maybe 20 starts here and there. That's what I would like to see from Carter Kieboom, because I'm not 100% sure on if this guy is a quote-unquote bust or whatever you want to call him. I'm not 100% sure. I may be 98% sure, but the Cardinals were 98% sure that Lane Thomas wasn't going to be any good. And look what happened. You never really know with these young guys. You never really know when it's going to click. Some guys, it takes a little bit longer. And if you were to land with an organization like the Dodgers or someone like that, you just know something good would happen and we would be missing out on that. And I don't want to miss out on that. You guys can catch the Nationals play the Yankees tonight at 7:05 Eastern Time and catch every pitch in the Nationals' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Nationals there. And before we preview this series, we're going to send you to a break, and then we'll preview this Nationals Yankee series up in the New York Yankees Yankee Stadium. It'll be a fun one tonight. We'll catch you after this. And now we're back as Josiah Gray faces off against former ace Carlos Rodon. And this season has been a rough one for this Yankees team. If you look around, every single player of theirs has had an injury cause, just a bad season in general. It has been a mess for the Yankees. And at this moment in time, this team, the Yankees, while a lot of people predicted them, including myself, predicted them to be a playoff team, and it wasn't really that bold. You have former MVP Aaron Judge going into last year. The Washington Nationals are only a few games behind the Yankees. The Yankees are 60-64, and the Nationals are 57-68. This is a complete, utter disaster for the Yankees this season. So with Josiah Gray going tonight, while he has struggled in the month of August and looking at all of his starts so far, he hasn't really made his kind of jump that we were expecting and kind of thought that he could do in this second half of the season, because what he did over the first half was incredible. But as we sit here today, going back to the Yankees real quick, the AL East is completely loaded. They are. But over the last 10 games, how many games have the Yankees won? You may ask. They've only won one game over their last 10. Right now, they are 17 games back from the Baltimore Orioles. They are 5.5 games back from the Boston Red Sox. They are last place in the AL East. Last. Now, that's a really good division filled with talent from top to bottom. And yes, the Yankees have a ton of talent, and they could still put the ball out of the yard at any given time. But looking at this game tonight, it's going to be interesting. With a lefty with Rodon on the mound, going up against C.J. Abrams, Lane Thomas, we know what he can do against left-handed batters, and then Stone Garrett as well, who has had a solid opportunity here over the last month or so. So looking at those matchups, I see the key power guys here. Speaking of key, Keibert Ruiz, Stone Garrett, Lane Thomas, and hopefully C.J. Abrams can get in the action as well, because Rodon has been awful. In 6 starts, he's got a 7.33 ERA. He's got a 1.52 whip. He's got 25 strikeouts in 27 innings pitched this year. And over his career, that has been bad. He has struck out way more batters than he has pitched in innings. But this is going to be an interesting game. And it doesn't matter how bad this Yankees team is. When you're playing at Yankee Stadium, your boy wakes up. And he loves to play in the Bronx Zoo. Because I believe the last time we were there, Juan Soto, 19 years old, Yankee Stadium, they knew about Juan Soto after that. I can tell you that much. So you guys can catch tonight's game at 7:05 Eastern Time on the SiriusXM and as well as the SXM app. Just search Nationals there. And of course, we'll talk about tonight's game because it is a Josiah Gray day, which we love here at Locked On Nationals. We'll talk about that game and much, much more on tomorrow's show. I'll catch you on the flip side.